So Curtis Sliwa is your upcoming host, and as we've been doing here, checking in on his horoscope, he's got the glasses, and these are some very special glasses with only one arm. The arm is tucked up into the beret, and then they rest on the bridge of his nose at sort of an angle so we can read while looking down. Curtis?
This is like when, you use tape to try to tape your glasses together. You look like a real Urkel, a real nerd, a real geek. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, but I mean, with what's old is new again. Sometimes like the 50s style kind of comes back. I'm not quite sure what this style is that you're doing here, but this
is total geek. This is total geek.
It's functional.
Yes. Now, as you know, I believe and I trust everything in the horoscope of only the New York Post about me and me alone. I am an Aries, March 21st to April 19th.
A fire sign, you go right through.
That's right, exactly. You have energy to spare at the moment. I always do. And that's just as well because someone you work with is going to need your assistance. If you can help them get out of a rut, you will be in their good books for a long, long time to come.
So you're going to help somebody out.
That I work with, yes.
Yeah. Who do you think that is?
I'm looking at you, man. You've been in a rut for a long time, man.
Okay. I wasn't aware.
I mean, come on, let's face it.
I've been in a rut?
Yeah.
What kind of rut?
Hillbilly hand fishing in the Passaic River, living in Bloomfield, the only non-Italian. You're in a bit of a rut. I mean, that's like postpartum depression for a wasp.
I like hillbilly hand fishing. I like living in Bloomfield.
I know, but it goes against your grain, your reason for being, the reason you were birthed in, what was that, Glen Rock or Glen Ridge?
Glen Ridge, yeah. You'd think I would be eating like watercress sandwiches and going to the country club.
You would, but I don't know. You've been ostracized. You're like the black sheep. So I'm going to help you get out of your rut. I'm going to I'm going to be a mensch, a double mensch.
Ooh, nice. Okay, good. So what do I have to do?
Well, just agree with me on everything.
As you would say.
Whoa. Are you mocking me? Are you mocking me, James Flippin? Really?
Never.
I mean, my horoscope says I have to help you get out of your rut.
Okay.
And here, you mock me, you laugh at me.
It doesn't list me specifically. There's other people that you work with.
No, but I know, but you're the one clearly in a rut. I've listened to you of late. You might as well. If I haven't heard your newscast one time, it's sort of like a Xerox copy of every newscast. It's too predictable. I mean, we can get into this later on, but I know what my horoscope says. I will be true to my New York Post horoscope, and I will do an act of mercy, an act of mental philanthropic activity by helping you. Now, let's get to the story of the day. Eric Adams, swagger man, finally with a plan to get a pardon. His heart goes out to Sean Puff Daddy Combs, who's there, as you know, in a cell with Sam Bankman-Fried,
his Maytag,
biggest rip-off artist since Bernie Madoff, right, with FTX. Mm-hmm. Bitcoin boy, crime coin boy. And yet, Eric Adams, who could go visit him, Sean P. Diddy, right? Could visit him.
I don't really know the rules with the MCC and visitation and stuff like that.
Well, I do, having... Okay. I sort of know the rules.
So he's allowed to have visitors?
Of course.
Okay.
Of course. And why is Eric Adams, who gave P. Diddy the keys to the city, remember, it was a year ago. It was in Times Square in the springtime as everybody, it was sort of the, what do we call that? The spring equinox. And what did the mayor decide to do? Give P. Diddy the keys to the city.
Getting the key to the city from the bad boy of politics. Give your hand together to Sean P. Diddy Combs, our brother. Giving it up for him. Show him some love.
Show us some love, right? Notice how he referred to himself, Eric Adams, swagger man, now with a plan to get a pardon, as the bad boy of politics. Isn't that so obvious? Now, why should Sam Bankman-Fried be Sean P. Diddy's Maytag in the Brooklyn House of Correction when Eric Adams soon will be soon convicted of political corruption? His trial starts in early April. I give it 2 weeks. He'll be found guilty. Wouldn't it be great if him and P. Diddy are cellmates? You know, maybe we can get R. Kelly in, we can get a few others in there, and man, they can do freak-offs in prison. What do you think?
I'm not really sure that that's going to be allowed. I don't think the corrections officers would allow those freak-offs. Are you
kidding? There's not enough correctional officers, and they can be bribed, as you know.
Okay.
They can be bribed, okay? It's not a good-paying job. They could easily be bribed to look the other way. So, are you in favor of our mayor giving love to P. Diddy in jail.
Well, I mean, look, I think that both of them deserve to have their day in court. You know, they'll obviously face that unless Adams gets his preemptive pardon. I'm a little more interested, to be honest with you, in what I heard you talk about this morning on Sid and Friends.
Oh, you mean the breaking...
Sid and Friends in the morning.
Yes, the breaking news that we're going to break again.
Breaking news, WABC.
You really think that the police commissioner is going to leave?
She's on the verge. She's on the cusp. Let me explain.
And why is that?
Let me explain how this came down. It was Sid who came on the air and said, based on people reaching out to him, so this is even before I came on the air. By the way, I came on a half hour later. I allowed Rich Lowry of the National Review to come on in my 7:15 slot.
Oh, you allowed?
Well, it's the highest rated segment.
Sid didn't allow, or Justin. They weren't the ones
but he said, do you want something in return? You know, I'm a politician, right? A quid pro quo. You scratch my belly, I scratch yours. Mm-hmm. I said, as long as he and the National Review endorsed me for mayor, which he did.
Oh, okay.
He did. He said, what is Curtis? Does he want a quid pro quo? And Sid said, yes. Or you wouldn't be on at 7:15. Mm-hmm. You see, at the art of the deal, right? Your hero, President Donald Trump.
Absolutely, yeah.
Was that not a great deal? In the words of William F. Buckley, now maybe Rich Lowry will call me an intellect. Well, let's not go too far.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
Okay. Pretty much got all I could get out of that. Okay, so Sid already had this story. Mm-hmm. Let me take you back to that fake, phony, fraudulent Fugazi story that Eric Adams, swagger man, now with a plan to get pardoned by President Trump, said that he received a call from some guy named Stevie Witkoff. I don't know, maybe Stevie Van Zandt. I don't know. No, it was some Stevie guy.
Yeah, okay.
The president summons you to the inauguration. It's 1:00 in the morning.
Right, yeah.
Inauguration day. And that Eric Adams, within 2 hours' time, is on his way to D.C., not by plane, but by his police SUV team, that is always assigned to him. And he gets there, and as you know, he's in the ante room there, not quite in the rotunda, but right off to the side. But hey, very prestigious. DeSantis is in there, some of the other governors. He's just not up where the president is being inaugurated. But hey, man, he's the happiest guy alive, right? Sid Rosenberg wasn't even there, right? So he really jumped up the queue. What he didn't do was tell the police commissioner, Jessica Tisch, that two of her top management guys were in the SUV with him going down. And how did we find out about that?
Well, there's a photo that's going viral of them sitting at a dinner where you've got Chief of Patrol, John Schell, and Kaz Daughtry. I'm not sure what his official title is, like assistant commissioner or something like that.
No. He's the deputy commissioner of operations. That means drones. Anything having to do with drones. He's already under investigation for the way he spent money, NYPD money, his overtime, which is outrageous. And he is the protege, as you know, of Jeffrey Madry, who was the chief of the department, the number 2 person in the department, but got cold busted for offering overtime for sexual favors from female police officers on the 13th floor.
Chief of Patrol, actually, it's Chief of Department John Schell now,
Chief
right?
of Department,
okay.
Right. Who has replaced Jeffrey Madry.
Correct.
And in fact, the FBI raided Jeffrey Madry's home in southeast Queens that his wife had kicked him out of about time, and they found a whole video collection that would have rivaled what the old penthouse Guccione had when he did Caligula. I mean, he took tapes of all this. What a sleazebag, right?
Yeah, it seems that way.
But anyway, the guy who took his position,
John Schell,
right, was also there.
Top uniform member of the brass. I mean, that's a top level position in the NYPD, and his commissioner didn't know.
Well, imagine you're Jessica Tisch. Now, as you know, I don't think she should be police commissioner.
You've said that.
She walks a beat. At least the only beat she's ever walked is from the Met Museum on Fifth Avenue
over to the park
to her townhouse.
Yeah.
Which is between Bloomberg's and Elliott Udisgratia.
And then if she has to go down to police headquarters, she'll tell Jeeves to fire up the limo.
The stretch limo, not any kind of limo, because she don't take the subway.
It's not a town car. Oh, if they said take the subway, she'd say, "Oh, perish the thought."
Exactly. I have Jeeves in my stretch limo. By the way, so she has been giving a colonic to the administration on the 13th floor, which is everyone below her. They first had to come in with a biohazard team for all the, what can we say, potential sexually transmitted diseases that may be all over the 13th floor because of Jeffrey Madry. They basically came in with hazmat suits, had to clean up the whole thing. It was like a mess, right?
Sleazy.
And she had to get rid of all of Adams' guys, right? I mean, all of them, except for this Kaz Daughtry, who ought to be actually patrolling. Maybe I give him a few stripes as a sergeant out on patrol. How the hell he's the deputy commissioner of operations with that baby face, right? Spending money. They give him a credit card. Is that not crazy? You give him an open-ended credit card to buy as many drones as you want, and overtime galore. So he should be on the outside looking in. John Shell was all part of those four amigos, remember? Jeffrey Madry, Tariq Shepard, who was in charge of the Department of Information. There were like 86 people. This guy's an all-out thug. So they survived. Okay, not my choice. But then they're on the trip with Eric Adams to the inauguration, and Jessica Tisch, the police commissioner, had no idea until that picture. She saw that picture, by the way, with all the Republican leaders from the state assembly and state senate who were there to try to negotiate Eric Adams onto the line so he could run in the Republican primary to get reelected. Because there's no other reason for him to be meeting with all these state Republican leaders, right? Would you agree? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of any reason why.
By the way, there was a Martin Luther...
Unless they wanted to talk about, I don't know, something actually relevant to governing in New York. That is possible, but...
Eric Adams doesn't do that. You know that. If it ain't about him, it's not worthy of conversation. Now, remember, at that moment, Al Slim Shady Sharpton was having a commemoration to Martin Luther King Jr. in D.C. in the church.
Yeah, he could have gone there.
Could have went. He could have done two things.
Sure.
I went to the inauguration. I said I would. But I also didn't abandon my very dear friend, Al Slim Shady Sharpton, who was in D.C. for the commemoration of Martin Luther King and all of his work, right?
But, I mean, you've already said that if Adams gets a pardon, then Sharpton has told him you're persona non grata.
Bye-bye. That's what he's told him.
Maybe he's already said, all right, well, I'm trying to get that pardon, so
all right. No,
screw this guy.
That's a good conclusion. Can you imagine you're the police commissioner? And you got to find out that your number two person, your chief of department, John Shell, is there in that meeting, went with Eric Adams to the inauguration, along with babyface Kaz Daughtry, who ought to be like busted down to a sergeant walking a beat, maybe in Brownsville, 73rd Precinct or wherever. Mm-hmm. She had no idea. Imagine. And then you remember that article in the New York Post where they're driving around D.C. playing with the bells and whistles, the SUV. Whoa, 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 whoa. Look at us. We get through all the barricades. And they picked up, this floozy, this Russian influencer?
Yeah, well, I was going to say, the reason we know about that one is because the woman that Adams was, as you would say, allegedly snacking on was with him for this trip down to D.C., and as they drove past all the security blockades, she said, ha, look at us. Security doesn't matter for us.
She's photobombing. She's Instagramming, and they know she's doing it, which, as you know, is a slap in the face to Jessica Tisch, which is basically saying, I'm the mayor and I'm the police commissioner, and just be happy at where you are on the 14th floor, One Police Plaza, because I put you there.
So what would you say? Is it like a 50-50 shot that she calls it quits at this point?
Well, let's just say John Shell, you would have thought, would have rose to her defense, right? Would have been on, By the way, he was supposed to be on with Sid a while back, and they wouldn't let him on, and there's problems there in the One Police Plaza, okay? She's got enough headaches. I don't want to add to.
All right, so we'll leave that one there. But I
really don't want to add to all the mishigash that she has taking place. I mean, this is a slap in the face.
Yeah, but look, I just have to say, on some level, while this is all very important stuff, I heard something on the air earlier today that really truly gave me pause. I was making a cup of coffee and it stopped me dead in my tracks, and I said, he's unhinged. He's lost it. You've always been especially focused on Mayor Adams, as you say, the swagger man with no plan, or now with a plan. But I heard a clip from one of your promos, and I said, I don't know, man. Curtis, we might need to do something at this point.
Eric Adams!
Yikes. I mean, do you think maybe you're taking this obsession a little far at this point? Yeah. Sounded kind of Yoko-like in a way.
Sounded like Linda Blair in The Exorcist.
Very much so, yeah.
Before you came to that observation, our own Bill O'Reilly did you notice? A few months ago, he had this to say. Bill O'Reilly. Oh, yeah. Oh, my
Curtis Sliwa. You know he's going to mention Mayor Adams. You know it. Okay? So if he's in the room, that's what Curtis is going to do sooner or later.
Yeah, my wife, too, Nancy, said you're obsessed with this guy.
You do, actually. I believe we've contacted some different psychologists to try to get some insight on this. And what we've heard is that you may be suffering from Adams aggravation disorder, AAD. It's a little-known condition, but you seem to be a test case in some ways.
Eric Adams!
You can hear it right there. Now, there's a lot of different layers to this. One of them, it's kind of fascinating, but, we know that you have designs on his job. You know what I mean?
Oh, every day.
Certainly.
From the moment I lost to him.
Right. You also just can't stand corrupt politicians, allegedly corrupt politicians.
And they're all corrupt.
So you have an issue there. But I also wonder if maybe it's that you yourself, Curtis, want to be a black man. You have the name Curtis.
What?
There's confusion sometimes. People think, oh, that's a black guy's name.
Well, Curtis Jackson, a.k.a. 50 Cent.
Right.
He culturally appropriated my name. Curtis Martin, the great
Curtis Martin. Oh, and speaking of that, like when Dominic Carter went to the tailgate and wore the Namath jersey, not the Curtis Martin jersey, people gave him the business. Some people say, you actually sound blacker on the air than Dominic Carter does.
There's no doubt. People have actually called up to say, if I didn't know who you were and I just heard the voice, clearly Dominic Carter sounds like the Caucasian persuasion, the snow bro. And you, Curtis, you sound like you're a brother from the hood. And I concur. I get that all the time. They ask me, why does Dominic Carter sound so white? Why does he white speak? And that is amazing when you think of the places he came from. Patterson houses, South Bronx, Throgs Neck houses, up there in the neck, all in the Bronx.
Yeah, but he's adapted to his surroundings in Rockland County, I guess.
Yeah, the whitest suburb in Rockland County, Pomona, where even the lawn jockeys are.
White?
Yep. So he white speaks. And I more often sound like the brother. You're absolutely right. And most people, I got to tell you this little story. Ron Stevens was the Guardian Angel chapter leader in Youngstown, Ohio. And he was driving me over to Pittsburgh where we were setting up a new group with a guy named Paul Martinelli, Mount Lebanon. This was like a upper end area, kids fairly well heeled. And he had no idea who Curtis Lee was because all they had done was Xerox over and over an article from Time Magazine, The American Scene. And it looked like I was black. Ron Stevens was black. So when Ron got out of the car, they all started running up, Curtis, we've been waiting to see you. And then Ron Stevens of Youngstown said, no, Curtis is right over there. The disappointment in all of them that I wasn't black.
Yeah. Well, look, the disappointment that you're feeling at this point with Mayor Adams, yes. You've made it very, very well known.
What do you call that, deranged syndrome?
Yeah, it's actually been diagnosed as Adams aggravation disorder, but AAD.
Before you came up with it, we have to give credit to our own Bill O'Reilly. He sensed that a while back.
Curtis Sliwa, you know he's going to mention Mayor Adams. You know it. Okay? So if he's in the room, that's what Curtis is going to do sooner or later.
So, you're a little obsessed here, man, a little unhinged. I'm just saying, you want to be mayor so bad. You hate this guy for the alleged offenses that he's committed and the way that he's run the city and the migrant crisis. It's all there. And just maybe you want to be a black man. Matter of fact, just a quick question. Didn't your first wife leave you? And wasn't she a black woman?
Get the hell out of here!
Curtis Sliwa. Rip and read. Check this out.
This is the Rip and Read featuring Curtis Sliwa.
Talking about
now to the Bernard McGurk studios of 77 WABC and Curtis Sliwa. This is the Rip and Read.
Oh, yeah, Justin Ellick, I know this was your favorite sitcom, as it was Nancy, my wife, because you're all hipsters and millennials friends, right? The four friends sharing an apartment, living in the same building, swapping stories, drama. And then Sid and Friends this morning, rumor mongering goes along that Barack Obama is somehow having a relationship with Jennifer Aniston. Is that correct, Justin Alec? That is correct. That was the rumoring going on this morning with Sid. And it's taken on a life of its own because Michelle Obama did not attend the high funeral mass in the cathedral in D.C. for Jimmy Carter, nor the inauguration. But as far as I'm concerned, that's a rumor. But he played the theme of Friends, and I thought it was pertinent to where I was last night in the heart of Maspeth, Queens, at O'Neill's, that gin mill there that is the epicenter of all activity in that part of northern Queens. And it was great because I had a lot of flashbacks while I was there with my wife Nancy, my campaign manager James Perone, the great Robert Holden, who nobody is a better community organizer than Robert Holden. Known him many years in charge of civics, community boards, constantly involved in activity before he ran for city council and won against all odds in 2017. So Robert Holden and his chief of staff, Dan, were hosting an event to raise money for the Republican candidate to replace him because Robert Holden is, in fact, term limited out. And his deputy chief of staff, Alicia Vitunis, who I know very well, Lithuanian American. I mean, in Queens, there's so many different Americans of different ethnic backgrounds. You get vertigo. It is the most diverse of all the boroughs, and everyone is of some immigrant group or can trace their lineage to immigrants who came to this country legally, as we point out. And Alicia is one of them. And Alicia told a great story at O'Neill's, the Republican candidate to replace Bob Holden. This covers an area of Middle Village, Glendale, Elmhurst, and, of course, Maspeth. It's the heart and soul of the working class, blue-collar working class community of Queens. How she got active when her son was involved in a high school situation like other students in the area, and the sitting councilwoman at that time, Elizabeth Crowley, related to Crooked Joe Crowley at that time, number 3 in the House of Representatives. At that time, it was deemed that one day he would be the Speaker of the House of Representatives to replace Nancy Pelosi, and not, as it is right now, Hakeem Jeffries. No, Joe Crowley was well on his way. And then because of his arrogance and greed and the fact he was never in his congressional district, which spanned the Bronx and Queens, AOC, all-out crazy Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, leader of the Socialists of America, was aggressive, went door-to-door, beat him in a Democratic primary, and then got elected into the House of Representatives and relegated Joe Crowley to what all former elected officials become, a lobbyist with their beak in the trough in Washington, D.C. This is what they all do. But Alicia Vitunes has always been there for that community, always. Everybody knows Alicia. And in fact, when she announced she was able to raise a lot of matching funds for this city council race and actually get the match right out of the box, that's how popular she is as the deputy chief of staff of Bob Holden. Now, the reason I'm talking about this local election, because history was made last night. Yes, I know, Justin Alec, in an age where everything is tribal, you're either with the Republicans or you're a Democrat, and never the two will meet. In that room was her adversary running for the Democratic nomination to replace Robert Holden, Phil Wong, who also works for Bob Holden in his staff office. And they were together, and they pledged solidarity that whoever won, the best man or the best woman, that they would represent the community the same way Robert Holden did, and they hoped that they could uphold his high standards of service to the community that goes way back beyond the 8 years as city councilman, but as head of the Juniper Park Valley Civic Association and all the community boards. It was I've never in 70 years of politics ever seen anything like that before. where both candidates were endorsed by the man who is forced to leave the seat because of term limits, Robert Holden, before a packed audience of Democrats and Republicans who were there to celebrate not just Alicia Vitunis, the Republican. Obviously, I'll be going out and getting her signatures as a fellow Republican, but saying nice things about Phil Wong, her adversary, the Democrat, and she's saying nice things. He's saying nice things about her. Unheard of. History that was made. Robert Holden did a video with both of them endorsing both, saying, I hope the best man, best woman wins because the community will be best off. And then I did likewise. And oh boy, there's nothing that has ever existed before. You really got to pay attention to that city council man in Corona because maybe it could set a new trend to what has become very, very divisive, very negative, divisive, tribal. You're either with us or you're them. You're a traitor. You know, all the terms that are used now when all of a sudden you might disagree with your party leadership or disagree with some of the statements made, and then you basically have to prove your loyalty. And it was clear last night that Alicia Vitunis is loyal to her community, loyal to Bob Holden, who has been a great mentor to her, but also to Phil Wong, the Democrat who is running for that same seat. So this is going to be a race for all times. And I'm so proud that I'm going to be in that district. By the way, I won that district the last time I ran for mayor in 2021. And then you have Phil Wong, the Democrat. And he has worked with Republicans and Democrats. His philosophy is, hey, it was ever best for the job. That's the person I'm going for. Even though I'm a registered Democrat, he has supported many a Republican over the years. Again, came in from Hong Kong. An immigrant, father of 3 children, great family guy. He's always there for the community. I first met him in 2018. He was there for the special school tests that Comrade Bill de Blasio, the part-time mayor, the dope from Park Slope, was trying to take away from the Asian kids who were doing well, meritocracy. And he was out there organizing and fighting, as was Alicia Vitunis. Even though she wasn't Asian, she was side by side with him. And then he was opposed to critical race theory, and he fought on the affirmative action level so that Ivy League schools would not cap the number of Asian entrants simply because they felt 40% is enough, even though Asians may have achieved through meritocracy the opportunity to get into these Ivy League schools. We're going to cap their enrollment the way they did years ago to Jews when they were doing so well against the Gentiles, and they capped their ability to get in. So both of these people, both Alicia Vitunis and Phil Wong, this is the kind of politicians that we need. People who've already done the work in the community. They're not trying to buy their way into office. They are not men or women of great means of equity. They don't have super PACs backing them up. They're not friends of the wealthy developers and the investors who, through the city of Yes with Eric Adams, who sold himself to the real estate interests and the developers, want to destroy the outer boroughs, want to destroy the residential makeup. They're both united in fighting the city of Yes. And it was really great to be there. I really think everyone needs to pay attention to this race because I believe this is what the future of politics has got to be. You get men and women, I don't care if they're Democrats, Republicans, independents, they get up on a stage, they have a discussion about the issues, they debate the issues, and then they let their constituents figure out at the ballot box who is the best candidate, who is it will serve the best interests of the community. In this case, Elmhurst, Maspeth, Glendale, Middle Village, the best interests of the city and the best interests of the United States. It's a new day, a new way. Yet I haven't seen anything like this in 70 years of my life. And I asked Bob Holden, I got a few years on him. I said, Bob, have you ever seen anything like this? He said, absolutely not. It's a way we can change the template. And my experience in that community goes way back to the 2001 elections. Robert Holden had to remind the audience, again, a packed audience at O'Neill's in Maspeth, that I had first met all of them at a Juniper Valley Civic Association meeting in which they were discussing who should the people elect to be the mayor. In the aftermath of 9/11, you had Michael Bloomberg, the billionaire, who as a politician and candidate really sucked. I got to tell you, he was horrible on the stump. But he figured every man, every woman had a price. You could buy every vote, and he tried to. And that at that time, his adversary was Mark Green, the perpetual candidate. He had pretty much run for every office, statewide, congressional race, even lost to a guy named Green. It was very confusing in the Upper East Side at that time. But he ran for everything and actually was ahead in the polls until 9/11, when all of a sudden the voters did a pirouette and they believed we needed a businessman to help us. And that's how Bloomberg became the mayor, not because he had more money than Mark Green. Mark Green was way ahead in the polls. Bloomberg was a horrible candidate. But he then was embraced by the outgoing mayor, Rudy Giuliani, who became America's mayor after 9/11, and even John McCain at that time. And he barely beat Mark Green, barely. It was 50-48, even with the millions of dollars that Bloomberg spent. But that meeting, there was 700 people, and I was reminded of that. And I gave a fire and brimstone speech on behalf of Bloomberg. Don't ever talk after me. Justin Ellick, just remind everybody, put Curtis on last when you're inviting me to speak. It's really not fair to the others because I get into a zone. And I mean, I had everybody standing on their feet, even the people who were supporting Mark Green, even after Crooked Joe Crowley, the congressman, spoke on behalf of Mark Green for mayor. Do you know what happened afterwards, Justin? The Bloomberg people took me outside, said, "You're never speaking on behalf of Bloomberg again." He didn't like the fact that you got more attention than he did. And I was persona non grata in that election cycle. Hey, tough noogies. Because I'm not, I got to say it the way it is before a blue-collar audience that I can identify with. And then I came together with them again in 2016. Many of you remember we defeated Comrade Bill de Blasio, the part-time mayor, the dope from Park Slope, who tried to shove that men's shelter into that Holiday Inn Express in Maspeth. Never consulted with the community, never got them on board, basically wanted to shove it down their throats. And that community came together, Democrats and Republicans. I remember I went to one of their many rallies. They were there every night. There was Bob Holden. He hadn't yet run for city council. There was Tony the florist, who's now the county leader. There was Alicia there. There was Phil Wong. They were all there working together. And in fact, it was at O'Neill's that we had the victory party when we defeated Bill de Blasio, the only time he was defeated. And a guy named Charlie coined the phrase, the dope from Park Slope. That's right, Justin, not my phrase. I co-opted that phrase. Charlie had the phrase, the dope from Park Slope. Boy, that is an area we got to watch in this election cycle. Because all of those people in Middle Village, Elmhurst, Glendale, Maspeth, they've seen a lot of their neighbors sell their homes and leave for Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, Texas, Tennessee, and parts unknown. But others who have decided to not move, to improve. It's what politics should be like. And I have that posted on my social networking sites. I know it's a good news story. It is a really good news story about politics, something you don't hear of nowadays. But please pay attention to it. It's the only way that we'll ever get our city back. We cannot continue to be at each other's throats because, let's face it, we need the Democrats. They outnumber the Republicans 8-1 in terms of the registration, and there are twice as many independents as Republicans. It is how to take our city back, and I was proud to be in Maspeth to do a co-endorsement, first ever. Alicia Vitunis for the city council seat, abdicated by Bob Holden, whose term limited out. And on the Democratic side, Phil Wong. May the best man, best woman win because it's in the best interest of that community, our city, and America.
Now, to the Bernard McGurk studios of 77 WABC and Curtis Sliwa.
Curtis doesn't know about you, but he rips and reads.
This is the Rip and Read. It's the left versus the right. In the right corner,
It's James Flippin.
in the left corner, it's Anthony Weiner. Live from Studio 77, it's a 77 WABC debate.
You know, it was unfortunate this morning, Anthony Weiner, when the National Review gave the seal of approval to James Flippin as the voice on the right.
I heard.
Said in the spirit of William F. Buckley, he's been the best person to take you on the right. Rich Lowry said basically gave that certification.
Yeah, I mean, the National Review, which, you know, you have more ratings when you clear your voice in the morning than they have. But here's the thing about Flippin. He comes prepared. Like, Dominic would just yell at the top of his lungs. You would kind of slip and rope-a-dope me a little bit. John was the boss, so I couldn't really tag him too hard. Flippin comes prepared. And this, oh my God, there's so much. We're like sipping from a fire hose this week. So much news out of Washington.
Okay. I mean, President Trump, the moment he sat down, it's like, boom, executive order.
So you're out in my old district.
Yes, I was in Maspeth, Middle Village, Elmhurst, and Glendale.
Yeah.
And they remember you.
Hey, when Holden, I would go to Holden's meetings all the time, and the Juneau Park Civic Association was a thing. Hundreds of people would go to those Civic Association meetings. They would get a little chippy at times, and Holden, he would have these journals of what the Civic Association was doing in 4-color, amazing art. He was at it, and all of us unanimously had this to say about Holden. Pain in the ass. However, that's kind of what you want in your city councilman. You want someone to kind of be out there kind of gnawing at the wires at all times.
Right, and as civic, we've sort of lost that.
Right.
So we went to school, we were taught about civic groups. I had civics once a week at PS 114 on Fridays, the role of government, or what all the elected officials
and all
do.
of us lived on a block that had a block association.
Yeah.
That threw a block party, but also got together, did a security watch. Look, those started to decline when there was a sense that the city was doing a little better, which is why some of these rooms are starting to fill up a little bit more now.
But that Juniper Park Valley Civic Association still super active. You go in there, it's not a love fest. Everybody is, they're gadflies.
But here's
they got issues.
Here's the thing about them. If you show up, if you stand in, if you defend your position, everyone leaves with a little sense of respect. They don't necessarily, I would win those areas, but not by much. And people like Tom Ogdenbenny and Gallagher and, these people and Miller from, the representatives of those areas turn out to be pretty good because they learn you can't be all one thing in order to get elected. Holden got elected as a Democrat.
Actually, he lost as a Democrat to Liz Crowley in the primary, licked his wounds. He looked at all the stats. He said, Curtis, in Woodhaven, she killed me. I said, you got to put me on your poster. They all think I'm Puerto Rican. And it helped, but because I was chairman of the Reform Party, he ran as Republican, conservative, Reform Party member.
I had a memory of him running maybe because he ran against Liz as a Democrat in the Democratic primary.
He lost. She beat him bad, but he won by 137 votes. You know how many we got him on the Reform line? 158.
So he owes you.
Well, I take credit for that, but there are other factors.
So you're endorsing, some people do ranked choice voting. You do every choice voting. You're endorsing the Democrat and the Republican?
You know how it is. You've been out there. You busted your shoes. This Alicia Vatunes and Phil Wong, I've seen them work together as Republican Democrats. Really a great team. And there are a lot of people like that, Al, but they don't normally get involved in politics anymore.
Well, here's the thing about I know that the woman who works for Holden is running. That apprenticing at the knee of an active elected official like I did with Chuck always gives you an advantage. You get to know the issues really well. You understand the agencies. They make good candidates. It's these guys that come out of Albany. Like I got a guy running my race who came out of Albany. They made a complete mess out of things up in Albany with the congestion pricing, with the pot shop laws, with closing our hospitals, and now he wants a promotion. One of my arguments is we should be getting more control for the city, not handing it off to Albany.
You're right. An apprenticeship. I was talking to a guy at the meeting yesterday who was an elevator repair guy, and I said, you worked for Mr. Otis? And he laughed. He said, I had to do a 4-year apprenticeship, and I had to be there with the head engineer. That's how you learn. You're right in politics. You should be an apprentice. so that you learn what you're responsible for, what you have to do as an elected official. And you're right, both of them, because they worked for Robert Holden, and learning from a guy who really was a community guy long before he was ever an elected official.
Because the main thing that people want, when they don't expect you to have the answer to every question, they do expect you to understand the lives they lead, and nothing speaks to that more than knowing the history of the neighborhood park or the history of the 7-Eleven as a hangout for kids, etc. Those do give you big advantages.
You know, Robert Holden said he remembers he was a photographer for one of the Jewish organizations in Brighton Beach, and he saw you, a skinny Bellini teenager, an apprentice for Chuck Schumer at that time, and he goes, you know, that guy, he's going places.
Well, plus when I started working for Chuck Schumer, I was 6'3", had blonde hair and a little nose. I morphed into the Semitic electable version of myself.
Now, this is really turning out to be a great left versus right program. Saturdays, 4 to 5, you don't want to miss it. You get the middle before the warm-up with Anthony Weiner. But I think you've finally met your match with James Flippin. It's the right balance.
Plus, it's got a good name. Flippin', Wiener, Flippin'. It sounds like a made-up radio name, but it's real. He's very good. Not as good as me. And he's got to defend pardons of people that beat the crap out of cops this week. So let's see how he does with that.
Robert Holden, councilman, listens to WABC all the time, morning, noon, and night. He's sort of like the state controller, Tom DiNapoli, listens to WABC. Yeah. And he said Flippin' is the best yet to take you on.
I agree. He comes prepared. Still not as good as me. I mean, you know, these are all people that I just swat away, but they're pretty good.
All politicians are insecure.
That's for sure.
You're certainly showing that now by flexing.
That's for sure.
Again, and what a load of stuff you have to talk about Saturday 4 to 5. If you haven't heard Left versus Right, you can catch all the back programs at WABCRadio.com. Go to the podcast.